All right, I'm going to follow up on my gold updates. My original expectation was that we would have some kind of crash event that would kick off the intermediate cycle decline, and then once that was over, we would probably get into a very frustrating and difficult grind that's likely to last anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks. And so far, that's kind of what's playing out here. We did have our big crash event, and then that has given way to uh, a pretty violent counter trend rally, and then now we're just kind of like I kind of expected, just in a difficult um, kind of going nowhere sideways grind. Um, I'm still not really convinced that this was a daily cycle low for one reason is that it didn't. It only held above the 10-day moving average for one day, and it never turned to this 10-day moving average back up. And usually, um, a rally out of a daily cycle low will rally far enough above or stay above it long enough to at least marginally turn the 10-day moving average back up. So as of right now, I'm kind of operating under the assumption that this is a B wave bounce in an ongoing daily cycle decline, and we're trying to complete the C wave down into that final daily cycle low now. Um, in order to do that, we need to break the um, cycle trend line. That's another um, confirmation that hasn't happened yet, and another reason that I'm a bit skeptical of calling this a final daily cycle low. We really should break this trend line, and if we can break that trend line, and sometime maybe by the end of the week, and especially if we can drop below this low here, then I think I would be inclined to call this, an ongoing daily cycle. We're in the declining phase of the daily cycle. Once we do um, close below this trend line and preferably break um, this pivot right here, then I would be more inclined to call a daily cycle low. And at that point, I would expect another very convincing bounce, one that lasts long enough to turn the 10-day moving average back up. And then, that would roll over. I would only expect that bounce to last somewhere between 5 and 10 days, and then roll over and start again this very frustrating, choppy move down into a final daily cycle low, which I'm really not expecting now until the first or second week of October, especially if we haven't completed this third daily cycle decline yet. If we're still trying to find that third DCL, then we're going to need, more than likely, we're going to need another complete daily cycle before this is finished. And I can say right now that if we come down, break this, and then get another convincing rally, something like this, especially if it gets above the 10-day moving average and turns the 10-day moving average back up, most gold bugs are going to be convinced that the bottom is in, and they're probably going to be premature, and then they're going to get caught as we continue to grind lower into probably into October. You need to be wary. If we can complete the final confirmation here, break this trend line, then I'm going to be looking for a daily cycle low and a convincing bounce. But I think you want to be wary that that bounce is probably going to be premature and isn't going to be a final intermediate cycle low. And I'm kind of anticipating some kind of a bloodbath phase, a final 5 to 7 days of a selling panic where people just can't hold on anymore, and they just become convinced that price can never go back up, just like during this period here, most traders became convinced that price could never go back down. we need to see a mirror inverse image of this at the bottom. We need to see a period that just creates utter frustration, and people give up, um, and everybody turns bearish. And then I think at that point we've probably got our intermediate cycle low, and then we would start our next intermediate rally, and I think that one will give us a sustained breakout, not only above 1923, but a sustained breakout above 2000. And at that point, I think we would start the bubble phase in earnest. All right, one more thing to finish. Intermediate declines, they almost always will turn the 10-week moving average back down. And the 10-week moving average is more or less the same thing as the 50-day moving average. So price has to, basically, it has to drop below that 50-day moving average and turn it back down before an ICL is complete. You can see even though this ICL was very quick, kind of a crash event, it still dropped far enough below the 10-week moving average to turn it back down here. You can see it, every one of these ICLs, the price dropped below and turned the 10-week moving average back down. It did it here, it did it here, it did it here, did it very quickly here. I think we're going to probably have to do it again before we can possibly get our final intermediate cycle low. And most intermediate cycle lows, not always, but most, will at least get oversold on the a faster moving average on the weekly stochastics. It didn't happen here. We didn't have enough weeks for it to occur, but you can see it did it this one, did it this one, did it this one. I suspect it's probably going to have to do it at this one too. So I would be leery about trying to call a final bottom until the slow stochastics on the weekly chart get oversold, and definitely not before price closes below and turns this 10-week moving average back down.